Welcome to podcast 43. Yes, 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 maybe, but yes.
Welcome back to podcast 43. My name is Fulton Collins, and I am joined with
me, Chris
yeah.
Ford.
Just to start off real quickly, we're gonna change up the format, but we're really just reversing how we do it. So we're gonna get into our featured discussion, which is McCabe. I know I'm gonna butcher it because I keep thinking of it and I keep messing it up, but McCabe. Wait, god damn it. McCabe, thank you. And Miss Miller, or is it Miller? McCabe
Mrs. Miller, yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna butcher it. So I'm sorry about that ahead of time, but we're gonna do our feature film, go into what we've been watching weekly, and then lastly, we'll go with the news. And so without further ado, I'll let Chris introduce the movie because it was his choice of the week.
So our film this week is McCabe and Mrs. Miller, directed by Robert Altman from 1971. It's a revisionist Western, and it really kind of ignores what a stereotypical Western would be, and it feels very very unique in that regard. So what did you think about McCabe and Mrs. Miller, Fulton?
Well, I very much enjoyed it. I think it was my first Robert Altman film, and it may have also been my first Warren Beatty film, but I'm not quite too sure. I'd have to look through the rest of his filmography.
You just need to watch Ishtar. It's how the fuck have you gone this long?
I know I'm sinful in that regard, but and I'll use that as a segue. Speaking of sinful, I thought the comparison between because this is the first thing this is the thing I keep coming back to most when thinking about this movie, is you have Warren Beatty's character, which I will not pronounce because I'm just gonna keep butchering it, but
Warren John Beatty's McCabe. He ran for president in 2008. Remember?
You have John McCabe who comes into this small little I want to call it a Western town, but I don't really know where it's set in. But he basically comes in and sets up a saloon that has gambling and prostitution in it. But when you see him enter, you see the construction of a church being built. And I just think that it's interesting that that McCabe is able to get the saloon up going and functioning before the church is being able to be fully functioning and fully constructed. And is it okay if I get into the climax just super quick?
Yes, let's get into it.
And I think, and to continue that idea, and I don't know how fully fleshed out it is in my head, but I think it's interesting at the climax where you have McCabe fighting out against the bear hunter, in quotes. I don't remember his name. You have that juxtaposed against a church burning down. So I'm trying to kind of fully flesh out what is being said there, but I just find it to be very interesting that you have this town that seems to be pretty comfortable with a lot of, I guess if you're looking at it from a religious view, a lot of sinful behavior. And then almost seems like the church gets destroyed a little bit by it. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't fully figured it out in my head.
I mean, even religion is kind of a component in that dialogue exchange between John McCabe and the guy that runs the guy that runs I think he runs the restaurant or the saloon.
Oh my gosh, I remember Smalley, which is a random business-esque character, businessman in the town. but I'm forgetting his name. It's like shoot, I have to look it up because I cannot remember.
But but like he's like, oh, you're, me and you have something in common. We should become business partners.
Mm-hmm.
You're Protestant, aren't you? Or you're Catholic, aren't you? And he's like, no, I'm
Sheehan.
not.
That's right.
Sheehan, yeah.
Sheehan.
Sheehan, played by Renee Auberjonis, and I definitely mispronounced his name. But it it's yeah, that religious component, it's like kind of an identifier, like some type of moniker,
Mhm.
but it's not necessarily carried through as far as the behavior that is portrayed in this town, or the blatant, just like the prostitution and sex
Mhm.
work going on. But I also think that something more interesting to talk about is
Mhm.
how this pretty much is just how this is pretty much like an anti-Western. Now it's
Mhm.
like, and I really gravitate towards stuff like this because you had this period of the Western when it was at its height in the around the 40s and the 50s, where everything was embellished. It was this legend of a great gunfighter, of this guy that was able to save the town, win the duels,
Mhm.
protect people. And then there got to be a period, due to the social conditions of the time, where that ended up not being the case, and people questioned, different portrayals of Native Americans and
Mhm.
other groups in these films. And so this almost feels like that, in the same way that Unforgiven, um, later on, is also kind of that revisionist, final nail in the coffin on the Western, because
Mhm.
you have this person that, um, John McCabe is somebody that people think is, oh, he killed John McCabe. He killed Roundtree, this
Mhm.
person that they keep mentioning. But
Which
then when they
Sheehan
find,
just can't drop. He keeps
yeah,
running all around and telling
he
everybody.
keeps spreading the news.
Mhm.
But when they finally do meet him, when he finally does meet Butler,
Mhm.
he says to his guys, like, that man definitely never killed anybody. And it's like, yeah, why? Like, he's Warren Beatty. Yeah, of course he
Mhm.
never killed anybody.
He's a very I think tries to carry himself as a proper man. Always is very tidy, but it's funny that he always refuses to take a bath, except when he does want to embrace in his love interest, Miss Miller, who comes to town, or not, I guess, follows him to town, I should say. And they strike up a 50-50 deal where she'll run basically the prostitution side of the business while he gets to handle the gambling side and the saloon side. And I thought their dynamic was pretty interesting. Um, do you know what she was smoking throughout the
Opium.
film?
She's a
Opium.
junkie. That's
Mm,
also the whole thing, is that like, you have these two people, and they're the in this story, they both are they both have their weaknesses,
mm,
and it's not like they're either of like strong fortitude or anything. That, like, at the end of the movie, after McCabe dies, it
mm,
just cuts to Mrs. Miller smoking opium, and it's just
mm,
like, that's how the movie ends. um so I don't know, if you look at it in the context of how people think of legends, or how people romanticize the West, I think that's the that's the best way to read this film, or that's what makes it so good, is that it really, like, we live in a time where, or just anything in the past, or in a rear view mirror, can just become something more than it really was. And then at the end of the day, these were just people, and they all had flaws, and they weren't as cool or as strong as they think that they are, but or as people would later on believe that they were, but that's not fun. That's not.
Yeah. I will say, even though that his the legend of McCabe, went past what he could actually do, I thought he was able to he fought better than I thought he would. At the end of it, I thought he was kind of gonna get out of stuff by circumstance, but he actually does if you want to call them henchmen, but killed the butler's partners in crime during the final showdown. He actually does get them, and then he also outsmarts the butler too, which I thought was really cool. Or I guess just like a fun little twist, but I didn't think that he was gonna survive it. Which, like you said, he doesn't. One thing I wanted to point out, I don't think he has a name, but a lot of people refer to him as the cowboy. I was very sad to see the cowboy get capped. I thought it was quite unfortunate because he seemed like such a nice, well, I don't know about, no, I mean, he seems like a nice guy.
He was just really horny.
Just very horny. I think the line is very funny when he's like, he walks up to some of the prostitutes, and he says,
"Who's next?"
He's like, "Who's next?" And she's like, "Well, which one do you want?" He's like, "Well, I'm gonna try y'all." And so just a weird little goofy line. But unfortunately, the cowboy, when deciding to leave the town, he's goes to buy some socks and is confronted by a character named Sonny, which Sonny is just, I guess, trying to prove his worth, and just kind of strikes up a confrontation with the cowboy, and shoots him rather unceremoniously, which is a little sad. I'm trying to think if there was really anything else that was on the top of my mind. I thought the cinematography was nice and hazy. Thought there were a lot of very well constructed, not well constructed, but very well composed shots. A lot of the rain looked very nice.
The Leonard Cohen songs are also really good.
Oh yeah.
The soundtrack is just all Leonard Cohen, and it almost kind of reminds me of how something like The Graduate just kind of is just, you just kind of have the songs, the songs just kind of ebb and flow with the cinematography and what's on the screen so seamlessly. And it's just kind of like, I think it's just kind of the way that like a guitar can just kind of do that. And they're just very lovely.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I don't know, maybe the film's depiction of Chinese folks isn't the best, but is it did you, I guess one way to look at it is a sign of the times. I don't really know how tensions were back in the beginning of the West between,
I do know that there was definitely some animosity. The Chinese Exclusion Act was signed in the 1800s, I think 1880s, and that was pretty, obviously quite a xenophobic, racist bill, but it was codified to prevent Chinese Americans from immigrating, and there was definitely that type of animosity, I think. So it feels, it was definitely part of that time.
Yeah. That's kind of what I took it at, but I thought it should maybe be talked about a little bit. Do you have anything else that you wanted to talk about with this film?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that it's kind of hard to I don't know, it's hard for me to like talk about much else with this movie,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's really just kind of a sensory experience to
Mm-hmm.
just kind of view it, and you just kind of like take it all in, and you can just talk about, yeah, like how something like how this is very how unconventional of a Western this is. But I don't know, I don't really have much else to talk about.
Yeah, I don't either, unfortunately. So I guess, are we ready to move on into our what we've been, our weekly recap?
Yeah, let's talk about our weekly recap of films that we've watched on these
And
days.
just before we do that, I guess we'll take an ad break, because this is where we normally have it. Okay, and we're back. So Chris, what have you been watching within the last week?
So I've been watching well, first I want to bring up this movie that I found out about a few days ago that was really that's just amazingly tone deaf as a dark comedy. And I'm just going to read the synopsis. It's called Dead Man on Campus. Came out in 1998. And it says in the synopsis is, college freshmen Josh and Cooper are more interested in hitting the bottle than in hitting the books, and their poor grades are set to get them kicked out of school. Their only hope of passing is to find a roommate who will kill himself. That's because an oddball college code states that a suicide victim's roommates automatically get straight A's. But sharing a space with a lineup of lunatics proves enough to drive both the boys crazy. So
How could that possibly be tone deaf?
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But I mean, it wasn't good, but it wasn't bad. I was like pleasantly surprised. Jason Segel's actually in it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he's like just this really horny jock that like is also aggressively Catholic.
Would that have been post Freaks and Geeks?
Freaks and Geeks,
You said
actually.
1998.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
So
interesting.
yeah, he I don't know, I just want to throw that out there because I think a lot of people forget about 1998's Dead Man on Campus, the weirdest college dark comedy I've
have to write
seen.
that down.
Yeah.
Would you recommend it?
I mean, I'd recommend it if you, I don't know if I'd recommend it, honestly. I would, however,
recommend. Funny.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, if you're interested in it, go for it. I would say something that I would recommend, however, is 2009's Madea Goes to Jail, which is Tyler Perry kind of, I don't know, almost kind of channeling. It feels like it's almost French New Wave in some aspects with how the tone shifts are, with how you have a very dramatic storyline and running parallel to a goofy storyline about Madea having run-ins with the law, and it's like usually juxtaposed. It's like really tragic backstory of one character that isn't even really like connected to Madea, and then like Madea like destroying somebody's car. And of course, you know, Madea, very funny. Tyler Perry does a great job as Madea, and he actually plays 3 characters in the film.
He's trying to be out Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, he's doing his clumps routine.
just as to plant the seed, maybe we will do a Madea themed episode.
Oh,
Maybe
it's in
it's in the works. It's
it's
in
in the
the pot,
works.
in the crock pot right now.
I mean, yeah, that's definitely coming down the pipeline. We don't even have to hint at that. It is
Mhm.
confirmed. But yeah, I've looked forward to exploring the Medea films because they are quite interesting. And my only qualm is that they usually the as far as like how the films actually like look, uh at least this one, Medea Goes to Jail, is quite lacking. There's a lot of it looked some parts actually looked like a TV film, but you know.
Oh boy. Well, I think Tyler
What
Perry's
about,
working on a new movie, but I'm forgetting what it was called. I
well,
feel
it's
like I've
not
just heard
Medea.
about it. I was Boo Hall or Medea's Boo Halloween, or was it just
No,
Boo?
Boo a Medea Halloween,
And then there was the sequel, right?
Boo 2, and then there was Medea Family Funeral, which was
The last
Tyler Perry,
Medea.
the last Tyler Perry film.
Well, as I hinted at last week, I was trying to get in a lot more films now that me and Chris are done with this semester. We got finals out the way.
Yeah.
So I got in a good bit. I'm kind of I'm going to try and rattle through them quickly because I do have a good bit to talk about, but I'll start out with the first one that I watched, which was The Fifth Element by Luc Besson. Is that how you say
Mm-hmm.
Besson? Okay. Um, and this was one that I'd always wanted to get around to. I always see it on a ton of lists and stuff, and I think it's pretty warranted. It's very fun. Chris Tucker is amazing. I think he kind of steals the show in every scene that he's in. Um, I'm forgetting his name, Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis has an interesting character that is also, you could say, quite horny, and a little touchy. But you know, it's tied to the thematics of the film, so it's interesting. um Mila Djokovic is great. Gary Oldman is very funny. I don't know, I know, and funny in a way that if you look at it out of context, that type of thing. He just has this weird haircut, has a little like plastic thing on the side of his head. It's a very interesting film. It's got good world building. And then the next film I watched was The Cider House Rules with Tobey Maguire, Michael Caine, and Charlize Theron. And I'm gonna kind of throw an idea out there, and I don't know, it's probably not gonna make a lot of sense, but if you could just follow me for one moment. Every time I
Mm-hmm.
see a film that takes place in like the 30s or 40s, and it doesn't have like bland cinematography, but it has a very like, I feel like some of these movies that are set in the 40s and 30s have a very like consistent like visual tone. And so I would compare this to Steven Soderbergh's King of the Hill, or King of the Hill. Have you seen that one, Chris?
Um, no, I actually haven't seen that Soderbergh film.
Okay, and what I'm about to say isn't going to make much sense because I know it's not tech. I'll just get into it. So I would put this film and King of the Hill, and there's a few other examples in my head. I just can't think of the exact films. They almost feel kind of classical to me, and I know that sounds kind of weird because it's not really classical in the sense of, like how a history book would could define classical, but that's always like whatever pops into my head when I see films like this. um normally have a very like orchestral type of score and stuff like that. But I'll move on from that idea because I haven't like fully developed it. And I don't think it makes too much sense, but in my brain it makes sense for some reason.
Mhm.
I will be honest, I don't know how many people are gonna say like, yeah, I want to go see Cider House Rules. It's kind of a weird movie if you look at it like and look at the thematics or not the thematics, but like how the story progresses. Like I think it's a perfectly fine film. It's got Chris, you might remember his name, and I should know his name because I really do love him as an actor. But in Da Five Bloods, who's the actor that had the Trump hat?
Oh, Delroy Lindo.
Yeah, so he's in this movie and he does fantastic. I adore him, and I feel bad that I always forget his name, but I think he's such a like extremely talented actor. He's in this, and he's amazing in it.
Yeah,
Um,
he is great.
yeah, but the so just to like put into perspective the plot, as Tobey Maguire, and he's an orphan, and he's raised by Michael Caine, and and so Michael Caine is a doctor for this orphanage, and so I guess he's a pediatrician and gynecologist. And so, abortion is outlawed at this time, but he still helps women do abortions. And so he basically raises Tobey Maguire to, follow in his footsteps. And Tobey Maguire's like, no, I don't want to do this. I'll go off and do my own thing. So I don't want to spoil too much, but he runs off with Charlize Theron, and or I probably shouldn't have said that, but it's whatever. I'm just. Do you care about spoilers, Chris, for the
No, I'm
Cider
all
House
right.
show?
Yeah,
Okay,
no, no
all right.
worries.
Because I'm just trying to get a point across. Like it's just really odd because Tobey Maguire neglects um you know neglects the path forged for him already and decides to go and do his own thing. So he goes and does his own thing, and then he gets put in a situation where he has to help um, a woman have an abortion. And the reason why is very understandable. And I understand why Tobey Maguire decides to help her. But his moral conflict is that he does not agree in abortion. He doesn't want to be taught how to do an abortion. He wants nothing to do with it. So then he becomes forced to do something with it, which I think is interesting, but I don't think the film really dives too far into it, which is a little, lackluster and like anticlimactic in that sense. So he helps this girl have an abortion, and then he goes back to the orphanage and decides takes the place of Michael Caine. So it's just it's a really weird kind of like turn at the end, but I don't know. I don't know if I have too much more to say on it. I think I could, but I don't want to take up too much time.
What spurred you to watch Cedar House Rules?
Well, when we finished Don's Plum, I was like, yeah, I really want to see what 90s Leo and Toby were doing. And so this was like I really wanted to watch The Quick and the Dead, which I couldn't find anywhere in streaming, and I made like some purchase or something, so I didn't feel like renting anything at the moment. And this was on HBO Max, so I decided to do that. And I was like, and also there's an episode of Always Sunny where the gang gets a time capsule and they have a laserdisc copy of the Cedar House Rules. And I always thought it was funny because I in my head I always had a different idea of what this film was, but now I'm even more
Yeah.
confused why they put Cedar House Rules in their time capsule. So I don't, I and like I said, I don't think many people are going to be wanting to come to this because while I don't think that it's not a bad movie, it's pretty well made, I would say. I mean, it's not going to blow you away. Like it's a decent film, but I don't think it's one of those films that I think it was one of those films at the time that they were like, yo, man, you got to see Cider House Rules, but it's just been kind of, tossed a little bit to the left of the road, in terms
Well,
of, you know.
well, you watched that Judd Apatow produced Netflix show Love,
Mhm.
right?
It's a
Well,
great show.
I remember that's how I found out about Cider House Rules was actually
Mhm.
there was that whole thing with like how he would have friends over and they would watch a movie and then make a song about the movies that they'd watch.
Oh
And then
yeah.
they did a song one day they watched Cedar House Rules on the show and they made a song about it and they're like Cedar House rocks and Cedar House roll. Cedar House something rule. It was something, yeah. That was all I remember. But yeah, that's
yeah. I mean, it's like I said, and I'm gonna say this, and it hurts me to say this, but it's something I grew up. Tobey Maguire was a huge part of my childhood because of Spider-Man, and so I've always kind of had a fascination in like the roles that he chooses and stuff, and just him as a personality and him as an actor. And I think the longer Toby has acted, the better of an actor he's become. But I think in some of those earlier roles, he's not a super strong actor. And I know he's not, but I still really enjoy watching him as like a on screen, if that makes sense. But I
yeah.
think people just naturally have those people, actors and actresses that they'll just kind of go see whatever for. So I think he's kind of one of those people for me.
Well, speaking of things that I've been watching no matter what, I bet you're wondering, did you watch a Woody Allen movie this week,
Yes,
Chris?
yeah.
And I did because I watched Love and Death, which is Woody Allen's 1975 effort. So more of a straight up comedy from Allen as opposed to kind of a pastiche of any type of genre or things, or it's a comedy where Woody Allen and Diane Keaton are both they live in Russia in the it's like the early 1800s, and then it's during like the Napoleonic Wars, and like hijinks ensue, and then there's a lot of references to Russian literature.
Well, I love Russia.
I love Russia. But it's just kind of like a weaker version of Sleeper. I mean, it was good, but like I would say it has a lot of the same beats as Sleeper, but it's not as funny, and it's like almost like the conclusion in some ways is kind of similar to Sleeper, with how like Diane Keaton and Woody Allen, like they team up and they like do something and attack like the big bad guy, which is like what they do in Sleeper. But I think that a lot of the times the jokes don't really hit, but that's okay because it's still a pretty all right effort. It just got added to HBO Max this month, so
they're killing it with their selection right now, man.
That's right.
They've got Woody Allen flicks, Cedar House Rules. They have Torque. Go see Torque if you haven't seen Torque.
Yeah, they
But in all seriousness, it's by far my favorite streaming service right now in terms of variety, so
I would say easily mine too. Other than Criterion Channel.
Yeah. No, I mean, very true. The next, yeah, continue.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I also finally got around to watching Dress to Kill, and I thought that maybe you'd want to say something on that because I know you enjoy that.
Oh, Dress to Kill. Oh boy. So actually, the first time I got Dress to Kill during one of the Criterion sales, the first time I watched it, I got 30 minutes into it, and I said, "I hate this." I ejected it, and I didn't watch it for like a year or two, and I was like, that movie is so like fucking boring. I didn't want to watch it. I hated that I had it. I don't know why I don't know where this came from, but then I finally sat down to watch it, and it blew me away. It's like it was at the time one of my favorite movies that I had watched, and it was a huge kind of propellant for me to get more into Brian De Palma. But I am interested to hear what you have to say about it.
Well, I enjoy it. I think it's probably of the Hitchcock pastiches that he's done, or of the earlier ones that I've seen. It's probably, I would say probably it's better. It's better than Sisters, but it's not as good as Obsession or Body Double, which Body Double is number one.
Interesting.
Numero uno.
Because I do love Sisters as well. But I have a weird, like, I want to say I rewatched Dressed to Kill and Sisters, and I didn't like them as much as the first time that I watched them. So I think that kind of initial watch, you know.
Dressed to Kill also suffers from being like its portrayal of transgender people is like it's very like it's not good at all. Like when you think about what how transgender people are portrayed in 1980, and it's like, you know, very infrequently, yes, and also when they are portrayed on the screen in this film, it's a psychopath killer. Like,
I guess it following again in the footsteps of Psycho.
Yeah, and it also is like the conflation of dissociative identity disorder and gender dysphoria, and so
yeah.
That part
definitely is not a good part, but I do love the suspense. You know, you know, he's great at what he does. And that scene, I don't want to spoil it, but there's a scene near the end where there's a shot inside of a insane asylum, I think, and they do this really I want to call it a crane shot, but it basically zooms out and it's one person attacking another person, and then everyone in the asylum's going crazy, and it's this crazy chaotic shot. That shot's pretty cool.
And also that shot when in the elevator with Nancy Allen, and it's just like the slow motion, and then with the mirrors, without giving much away. I did like it though. I think that I like how it mirrors Psycho in those ways that De Palma will do. Like it mirrors Psycho enough to be its own thing though, like kind of because it hits the same beats where it's like 30 minutes introducing a character, and then boom, and then new characters. And Michael Caine, I think, was very good in it. So
I thought Nancy Allen was pretty good in it too. I always really liked that. I think that was always an interesting duo, her and De Palma. But then they got divorced, and then I don't think they really did. I don't really know what their relationship was like.
Yeah, probably, you know, getting divorced, I don't know.
Probably puts a strain on things. I'll talk about these next two just a tiny bit. I know I kind of went on a tangent with the Cider House Rules, but or Cider. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Have you seen this one, Chris?
I've actually never seen Fear and Loathing, which is crazy.
I think this one's right up your alley. Because it's you know, it's not what I was expecting when you first started watching it. It's kind of this like zany, wacky thing done by Terry Gilliam, and it's, you know, a half bald Johnny Depp, and he's like, "Whoa, what is it? How does it?" And, you know, he's looking around, and then you've got an overweight Benicio del Toro just, you know, going crazy and berserk and everything. But so it's a fun ride. And I you know, I'm borrowing a little bit because Chris got me hooked onto the Important Cinema Club, but I think it's really interesting. They talked about this quote from Terry Gilliam about how this film is, you know, when you first start doing, which I have never, I don't have a lot of experience with drugs, but just saying, this is a quote from Terry Gilliam. He says, like, you have the fun drugs that you kind of start out with, and then the deeper you get into those drugs, you have the harder drugs. And that's kind of what Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is. But it's also a reflection of, how flower power came and went, so it's really, I found that to be very, very interesting. That's kind
Yeah.
of really all I have to say about it. Great acting all around. And I don't hear a lot of people, talk about this, but it's also got Tobey Maguire in it. That was also why I
It
decided to
does.
watch it too. And he looks weird as shit. He's got long blonde hair that goes down to like the middle of his back. And it's just like really weird to see him with blonde hair, because you can't really tell where his hairline ends and his hair begins. It's kind of funny. But he has a minor role, but he is a funny role. Um, I want to talk about an early Jim Carrey comedy called Once Bitten.
Oh, I think I saw that on Amazon yesterday. It's like from the 80s, right?
1985. Yeah.
Yeah, 1985.
I will be honest, I don't think this film is for me. There are some very funny
Yeah.
visual gags. Um, it's got a lot of in terms of visual gags, I think it's got a lot of highs, but the bulk of it's kind of like the pacing is kind of weird. It's a little slow at times. And with Jim Carrey, you can see the seeds kind of sprouting and starting to take form, but it hasn't
Mhm.
really hit its peak yet. And I don't know. I mean, I forget the director, but they obviously knew that Carrey was a very good physical comedian, and they do try to take advantage of that. But I don't know if every time it works. But a few. I'm trying to think. There's this Jim Carrey has a friend, and he's got two nerdy friends. They're all trying to get laid. That's the whole thing. So it's another seminal comedy about
That's like
you
exactly
know
the plot of Earth Girls Are Easy, another early Jim Carrey
yeah,
film.
that one might, I still need to watch that one. That one might be better. It's probably a little bit, it's probably better than this one. But Jim Carrey's friend has a shirt that says freelance gynecologist. I thought
Yeah.
that was pretty funny. I thought that was pretty funny. But there's some good visual gags in there. I don't think that this thing, eh, I don't know if I can strongly recommend it, but if you're a Jim Carrey completionist, go ahead and get this one out the way a little bit early. And it's not a total mess. It's just, I think the bulk of it's kind of weird. And then one of my favorite parts, because I really don't understand it, there's a scene where Jim Carrey's love interest goes to this library, and the librarian is a completely white dude, but he talks in an Indian accent, I think. I can't tell what type of accent he's trying to do, but it comes completely out of nowhere. It's very bizarre. And then another visual gag I just kind of want to highlight. There's this scene, and also, I guess I should talk about how backwards Jim Carrey's character is. He basically like, kind of manipulates his love interest into sleeping with him, because his girlfriend doesn't want to sleep with him because she just doesn't feel like the time is right. She wants it to be something special. And instead of, respecting her and respecting her wishes, he decides to go find some he decides to go find a lady out in Hollywood to, to get laid, because he wants to take the pressure off of him so he's not so horny, and so he can perform better for his girlfriend. That's his rationale during their first time. And then I don't want to get into, the ending is very backwards in terms of how it's resolved, but um, you know, And lastly, just one other visual gag in the thing I thought was funny. Jim Carrey's trying to hook up with his girlfriend, and they're in this parking lot, and there's like a ton of cars parked in the parking lot, and everyone is having sex in their car besides Jim Carrey and his girlfriend. And all the cars are like flailing around, and you see legs like hanging out and dangling, and you hear like moaning and stuff. I thought that bit was very funny. Um,
It's called Once Bitten, right?
yeah, Once Bitten.
Yeah.
If you got a couple friends with, I think it's maybe, I don't know. It's one of those weird ones. Too Fast, Too Furious. Saw this one at Fast Fridays. If you don't know about Fast Fridays, your local cinemas might be playing. Yeah, what's up?
Wait, Too Fast, Too Furious was the? Oh wait, yeah, because Tokyo Drift is
is the third one. Yeah. Just to highlight this because I don't want people to miss it. Fast Fridays, your local cinemas might be playing the Fast and Furious movies for free. They're doing a movie each Friday and build up for Fast 9, which comes out like June 25th or something like that. So the week this comes out, the Friday showing will be Tokyo Drift, but you can just go to fastfridays.com to like see like what your local like theaters are like. Too Fast, Too Furious. I don't think I don't think this movie is for me. But I do kind of oddly appreciate it in a way. Every time I watch it, I just say to myself, this one isn't for me. It's got some funny bits in it, but and lastly, sorry, I know I'm going on for a bit. For the 10th anniversary of Scott Pilgrim versus the World, they did a re-release where I think they upscaled the image or upscaled or remastered, however you want to call it. And then they also redid the audio mix. And again, I think this is one of those movies that I used to love a lot more when I was younger, but I still very much appreciate the filmmaking and the energy and the creativity behind it. And I will say this one thing that I noticed, this is like probably like my fourth or fifth time seeing this. I've seen it probably a little bit too many times, but the beginning, like the first act moves so quickly. I think that might be my only like minor criticism of it, but I mean, I do truly I very much do appreciate this film. I don't think I have too much to say that hasn't already been said about it.
Formulative film for a lot of people.
Yes, very. But they're doing the 4K release.
Not formative. Formative.
Yeah.
Not formulative. Yeah.
They're doing a 4K release here soon. I think in like July, that has the new audio mix. I highly suggest picking up the 4K mix or the 4K copy just for the audio mix. It sounded like fantastic and it looked fantastic as well, but I always remember it looking very nice. But I'd have to like pop in a Blu-ray copy to really tell the difference. But yeah, thumbs up, I guess, for that.
All right. Well, should we get into news?
Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Oh my gosh. Okay. Trailers. We have Dream Horse that has Toni Collette and Damian Lewis, which will be out May 21st, and it follows the story of Toni Collette not breeding
as a horse. No.
That would be very funny. That's Ari Aster's next film, so way to be the whistleblower, man.
Sorry, that NDA is broken.
Yeah. We were personally invited on set because of how much we love Ari Aster.
Big fans.
Yeah. It stars Toni Collette, and I believe she is training a horse or race horse. That's all that I know about that one, but the trailer's out now, so feel free to check that out. Augustine Frizzle's The Last Letter from Your Lover, which apparently this is her second adaptation of a Jojo Moyes book. Apparently it has Felicity Jones and Shailene Woodley. It'll be out on Netflix July 23rd. It looks like a romantic drama, I guess you could say. What everyone's super excited about, and I'm so glad that the trailer dropped today because we're able to talk about it.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Well, I'll start it and then I'll let you. So Venom, Let There
be Carnage.
There we go. Yeah, it comes out September 24th, and I think it's pretty much what everyone wants from a Venom sequel. It sounds like
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
currently, yeah.
it seems like Venom in the symbiote, or no, Eddie Brock and the Venom symbiote. They have this little back and forth going on in the trailer.
Looks interesting.
Looks interesting. Woody Harrelson in a really bad wig.
I'm glad they decided to keep it and not make it look better.
Directed by Andy Serkis for some reason.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a great time, and I'm really excited. The movies are back, guys.
Yeah, movies are back. So I couldn't agree more. I am excited. I do need to check out. I am gonna rewatch the first Venom because I remember the first time I watched it, I wasn't too crazy on it. But you've kind of been selling me on a rewatch.
I'm a big Venom fan. I think it's an excellent piece of camp. Great utilization of Tom Hardy chewing the scenery. That's what superhero movies should be.
No, I couldn't agree more. Lastly, I think we've talked about this one. I wanted to say it was on last week's podcast, but A Quiet Place Part 2. They just released a new trailer and build up for their release later this month, which is May 28th. In terms of news, Olivia Wilde is already working on her next project called Perfect, which will be centered on gymnast Carrie Strug. And she has cast Thomasin McKenzie as the lead role, which she is a U.S. Olympic gymnast. And I believe the story goes that she hurt her ankle and she performed what her last thing was in the Olympics with a broken ankle, and so I think it's going to be a very dramatic kind of biopic. There we go. Found my way in there somehow. Miguel Sapochnik, Sapochnik, movie Finch that stars Tom Hanks, which was written by Craig Luck and Ivor Powell, is heading to Apple TV Plus. So this is kind of interesting because it'll be Tom Hanks' second movie that has gone straight to Apple TV Plus. So I wonder if it's just by circumstance, or or if he will continue into a partnership. But it's it takes place during an apocalypse where an inventor, which is played by Tom Hanks, his name is Finch, will invent a robot to protect his dog. So it seems like kind of a very Tom Hanks movie. Jake Gyllenhaal and Amy Adams are going to produce a movie called The Mother Tree, which will star Adams in the lead role as scientist Suzanne Simard, which is based on Suzanne's own memoir. Carrie Cracknell's adaptation of Persuasion, which is a Jane Austen novel, has cast Henry Golding and Dakota Johnson in it. I don't know too much about Jane Austen other than what we had to read in high school. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this already, but Stacey Osei Kaffour, who is famous for working on the Watchmen TV show, is currently writing the script for Blade. For Marvel, which unfortunately the filming has been delayed till 2022, so we're kind of unsure about when we'll see that, but it should be interesting. Joey Soloway's remake of Red Sonja, has cast Hannah John Kamen as the lead and is currently being written by Soloway and Tasha Huo. I'm so sorry, guys. Gareth Edwards is working on his next film called True Love, which is cast John David Washington in the lead. The only thing known about it right now is that it'll be a sci-fi. And Antone Fuqua is working on his next film, Infinite, which will have Marky Mark as the lead and will premiere on Paramount Plus. Which was originally, the movie was slated for a theatrical release. And unfortunately, this isn't the only movie that has been switched from theatrical to streaming, because we have news that Sony has given their new adaptation of Cinderella to Amazon, which was directed and written by Kay Cannon, and it stars Camila Cabello. I forget what group she was a part of, but anyways, she's a pop star. And she has done, work this is, I think, her acting debut. She also did songs for it. So that'll be out.
She's in Fifth Harmony.
Fifth Harmony, that's right. I just couldn't remember what it was, but so that's interesting, that it's moving to Amazon. Henry Joost, 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 and Ariel Schulman are directing Secret Headquarters, which will star Owen Wilson. And it is about a kid who discovers a superhero's like base and must defend it. I just thought this was interesting because I honestly hadn't heard about Owen Wilson being in a new movie in a while. And then I looked into it, and he is in Wes Anderson's next film, The French Dispatch. But I just kind of forgot about him for a moment. So I'm glad to see that he's doing stuff again. Neil Berger is working on his next film after Voyagers, which I covered a few episodes ago. I have mixed feelings. I'm interested to see what he'll do next, I suppose. But this one is Daisy Ridley, so I'm glad to see that she's getting work again. But it's called The Marsh King's Daughter. We'll also have Ben Mendelsohn. And it is essentially like a captive plot type of story where Daisy Ridley escapes from her captor. And it's kind of about the fallout of her life, and it'll be a thriller. So it sounds interesting. Sam Hargrave is working on a film called Stay Frosty, which he has cast Idris Elba as the lead and is currently being written by Tyler Marcelka. And in an interesting turn of events, NBC has come out and said that they will not air the Golden Globes in 2022 due to the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, due to their, and I'm going to quote, empire. The HFPA has an exclusionary attitude and has been having financial mismanagement. So this is another turn in kind of a recent sequence of events where we see Tom Cruise reject his Golden Globes and send them back to the Golden Globes. So it seems like a lot of people are kind of are rightfully rejecting the Golden Globes and the foreign press into kind of forcing them to do what they should be doing. Set photos of Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon show Lily Gladstone and Leo DiCaprio in character, so it looks really interesting. Ryan Johnson adds Dave Bautista to the cast of Knives Out 2. And lastly, I know we're a little late to kind of touch on this, but I thought it would be interesting. A$AP Rocky, there's a new A$AP Rocky documentary coming out called Stockholm Syndrome, which will premiere in June at Tribeca Film Festival. Going by the title, and anyone that might know about what he went through, he was basically, was it prison or jail? I don't know.
He was in jail in Sweden, right?
Mm-hmm. And he was held there, and it's basically about his time there, and I'm assuming it's just going to be a recap of what he's kind of what his emotions were during that. So it just sounded kind of interesting. So that's all we have for news, and we can announce next week's feature films, because we're back doing a double feature. Next episode is quite special, some might say, because the movies we're covering, but I think this marks our first reoccurring guest. So we're going to be covering American Psycho 2 and S. Darko. We're going to be covering the two sequels that tend to, they live in their predecessors' shadow. So this will be quite interesting. And Graham Scott is going to come back on to help us out with our discussion.
With deciphering.
Yeah.
What made history forget these films?
I'm pretty excited to get into these. I've been wanting to see them for a while.
Yeah,
but they're pretty famous for I'm genuinely interested to, I feel like a lot of people have heard of them, but I don't think many people have seen them. And I could totally be wrong. I don't know, but
will Mila Kunis's performance be as good as Patrick Bateman's or as Christian Bale's in the first American Psycho?
Probably.
Who knows?
I would say yes.
But
Yeah.
you can also look forward to a review from me and Fulton of Wrath of Man next week as well.
Yes, and also just a future thing that we're working on, along with our Madea centered episode. We're also working on doing. I know we talked about it briefly last time, but we are working on doing a review. A little round table discussion, as some might call it, a Zoom table discussion on the director's cut of Texasville. So we'll have Reagan Jones back on to talk about that. And yeah, so that'll be a one-off type thing. It's not going to be like a regular episode. So we'll get that in the pipeline soon, I promise. So yeah.
All right. Well, y'all have a good rest of your week and stay wavy.
And stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time.